This is Bone Chillers to disturb your dreams. Dare to join us? Click subscribe, ring the bell. But remember, we cannot guarantee your safety from the nightmares that await. Prepare to be thrilled, chilled, and filled with a sense of dread you'll find nowhere else. Welcome to the darkness. We've been waiting.
Man's best friend. Marjorie and Jim Lewis, along with their 2 kids, had always been a cheerful family. Their yellow Labrador, Sparky, was the cherry on top of their perfect family picture. But life took a strange turn when Sparky disappeared. Despite the family's extensive search, there was no trace of him. A year later, on a cool, summer evening, there was a scratching sound at the back door. Jim opened it to find Sparky sitting on the porch, wagging his tail. A collective sigh of relief echoed through the house. But something seemed off. Sparky's eyes held a strange glow. His demeanor, once playful, was now strangely subdued. Nevertheless, they welcomed him back with open arms, attributing the changes to his year-long ordeal. Days after his return, odd occurrences began. Unexplained noises, flickering lights, doors slamming shut, toys moving on their own. More disturbingly, Sparky began displaying odd behaviors, growling at empty corners, his eyes glowing a sinister red in the dark. One night, Marjorie woke to a chilling whisper. She followed the sound and found Sparky, sitting upright in the living room, his eyes glowing in the darkness. He was staring at a family picture. The sight unnerved her, but she convinced herself she was dreaming. Weeks passed, and the disturbances grew. Their youngest child, 5-year-old Hannah, began waking up with unexplained scratches. She claimed that Sparky was scaring her in her dreams. She said he spoke to her, but not with the barks or whimpers of a dog, but with a human voice, echoing words of dread and malice. Panicked, Marjorie and Jim consulted a local priest. Father Mackenzie, an elderly man, known for his expertise in spiritual matters, visited their home. As he stepped over the threshold, Sparky began to snarl, his fur bristling. The dog's unusual hostility alarmed the priest. Father Mackenzie performed a house blessing, but midway through, Sparky's reaction became more aggressive. His eyes glowed with intense hostility, and he growled with a deep, guttural sound that seemed impossible for any dog to make. Fear gripped the family as Father Mackenzie announced his suspicion: Sparky was possessed. The priest explained that he had seen such cases before, rare but not unheard of, where dark entities latched onto unsuspecting souls. His next words sent chills down their spines. "We must perform an exorcism," he declared. The exorcism was scheduled for the following day. The family watched, terrified, as Father Mackenzie started the ancient ritual. Sparky resisted violently, his howls echoing like a tortured demon. As the priest chanted, his words seemed to reverberate through the house, shaking the very foundations. As the ritual reached its climax, Sparky let out an unearthly howl. Suddenly, the house fell silent. Sparky lay panting on the floor, his eyes normal again. A sense of peace washed over them. Father Mackenzie, drenched in sweat, proclaimed that the entity was cast out. Life returned to normal over the next few weeks. Sparky was back to his old playful self, free of any strange behaviors. The family felt an overwhelming relief, happy to have their old Sparky back. But one stormy night, as Jim was locking up, he felt a chill down his spine. He turned around to see Sparky, sitting in the corner, his eyes glowing ominously in the darkness. The dog tilted his head and smiled, a horrifyingly human-like smile. It seemed the entity was not gone. It was only lying dormant, awaiting its time. Their house was filled with fear once again, and the realization hit them hard. The horror had only just begun.
Title: Are You My Child? Once upon a time, in a small town nestled within the edge of an ancient forest, there lived a couple, Sam and Martha, with their lively and lovely 8-year-old daughter, Lucy. Lucy was a curious child with an irrepressible spirit for exploration. One fateful day, the girl's curiosity led her deep into the forest. She never returned. An extensive search of the woods by the distraught parents and a battalion of townsfolk yielded no sign of Lucy. Only a chilling discovery was made: a decrepit doll, clad in rags, with strikingly similar features to their daughter, sitting stoically against a gnarled tree. Sam and Martha brought the eerie doll home, seeing a haunting echo of their lost daughter in its fixed gaze. In the silent grief that filled the home, Martha, perhaps out of a desperate longing for her daughter, started talking to the doll, treating it like her child. She would cradle it, whisper lullabies, and even tuck it into Lucy's bed each night. Sam found solace in his wife's odd behavior, thinking it was just her way of dealing with the loss. However, things took a strange turn when Martha claimed that the doll was talking back. She insisted she could hear Lucy's voice from it, narrating tales of her adventures in the forest. At first, Sam dismissed it as the delusions of a grieving mother, but then, he started to notice it too. In the dead of the night, he'd hear soft whispers that seemed to float through the house, echoes of a child's laughter that seemed to come from nowhere. Sam began to feel the unnerving presence of an unseen force. The doll, it appeared, had taken a life of its own. In an attempt to reason with reality, Sam sought the help of the town's folklore historian, Mr. Barnes. Barnes was an old, haggard man who had a wealth of knowledge about the forest's legends and curses. When Sam told him about the doll, Barnes' face turned white as a sheet. Barnes told Sam about an ancient curse, once cast by a scorned witch on the town, that could trap the spirit of a child within a lifeless doll. To break the curse, the parents must accept the doll wholeheartedly as their child, acknowledging it not only as a substitute but as their actual offspring. With this newfound knowledge, Sam returned home, where he found Martha in deep conversation with the doll. There was an unsettling tranquility about her. Acceptance reflected in her eyes. He realized that she had unknowingly been working to break the curse all along. With a lump in his throat, Sam approached the doll and whispered, "Lucy, are you my child?" There was a sudden gust of wind, the lights flickered, and the doll blinked. In the softest of whispers, it answered, "Yes, Papa." As weeks turned into months, Sam and Martha cared for the doll, loved it, treated it like their lost child. Strange occurrences began to lessen, replaced by a bizarre sense of normalcy. And then one day, the doll was no longer a doll. Lucy was sitting on her bed, legs dangling off the edge, as real as she had ever been. Her skin was warm, her laughter genuine. She looked at her parents with bright eyes, hugging them tight. The curse had been broken. While joy and relief flooded their hearts, a lingering sense of terror remained. Lucy was their child, and yet, not entirely. She had become something beyond the ordinary, a supernatural blend of human and doll. Her giggle had an eerie echo, her eyes a strange depth. The once innocent playroom was now filled with an uncanny aura. Each night, as they tucked Lucy into her bed, the haunting image of the decrepit doll re-emerged. They held their breath each time they kissed her goodnight, half expecting the girl to morph back into the doll. Their love for Lucy was tainted by an underlying fear, forever reminding them of the horrifying ordeal they had gone through. The tale of the doll child spread like wildfire through the town, turning the family into an object of fascination and terror. While their daughter was back, Sam and Martha lived in the constant shadow of the unsettling events, questioning their reality. "Are you my child?" was a question they asked every day. And every day, Lucy would answer with a smile, "Yes, Mama, yes, Papa." But in her voice, there was a timbre that sent a chill down their spines, reminding them of the eerie doll she once was, and the dread of who or what she might become. And so, they lived in a world suspended between joy and horror, love and fear, never knowing when the past might come back to haunt them. The question echoed in their minds, a never-ending nightmare: "Are you my child?" Title: Why so serious? Darius had always felt a touch of paranoia, particularly when walking through the desolate park near his apartment late at night. There was something chillingly surreal about the flickering street lamps, the perpetual fog, and the odd rustle of leaves, as if a mischievous spirit played among them. But tonight, he felt a rare peace as he stumbled home. He was too drunk to feel much of anything else. A wave of unconsciousness hit him like a freight train. His last memory before darkness claimed him was the comfortable embrace of cold, dew-kissed grass. Then, nothing. The first thing Darius noticed when he woke up was the smell. Not the fresh scent of early morning dew or the bitter aroma of city pollution, but a sickly-sweet mixture of sweat, grease paint, and mildew. The next thing he noticed was the kaleidoscope of colors swimming before his eyes. He blinked, forcing his vision into focus, revealing a visage that made his heart stutter in his chest. A man, his face smeared in grease paint, stood over him. His tattered clothes, once vivid, were now a palette of faded colors that held the sad reminiscence of happier times. The stranger's grin was painted in a harsh red, stretching from ear to ear, emphasizing the disquieting question scrawled on his raggedy top hat, "Why so serious?" Darius croaked, "What do you want?" His voice cracking in fear and disuse. The clown shrugged, the bells on his jester collar jingling with the motion. "Why so serious, Darius?" Darius asked, How do you know my name?" His skin prickling with unease. "I know a lot of things," the clown replied, his grin never wavering. "But you, Darius, you need to lighten up." Darius scrambled up, his intoxicated state and sudden fear fueling his actions. He bolted for the park entrance, but it was as if he was running on a hamster wheel, the exit never coming any closer. The clown's raucous laughter echoed behind him, spiraling around him in a cacophony of terrifying mirth. In defeat, Darius sank to his knees, his breath ragged and uneven. As the clown sauntered closer, his oversized shoes making imprints on the dew-soaked grass, Darius was enveloped in a renewed wave of terror. "Can't run from yourself, Darius," the clown's voice was like gravel in a blender. "Face your fears." "Why so serious?" The question spun around Darius' head as he closed his eyes, his heart pounding like a drum. When he opened them again, the park was empty, the clown vanished into the chilly morning air. It left him with an echoing silence and a question that gnawed at him. Why was he so serious? Days turned into weeks, and each time Darius passed out drunk, he would wake up to the terrifying grin of the hobo clown, the tormentor of his drunken nightmares. Each encounter ended the same, with the clown's terrifying question echoing in his ears. Darius grew more paranoid, his sleep becoming scarce. He stopped drinking, and the apparitions of the clown ceased. But the question persisted. Every corner, every shadow, seemed to echo with that unsettling laughter and the query that twisted his sanity, "Why so serious?" Months later, Darius found himself standing in front of the park again, the place where his horror had first begun. He was sober now, his paranoia receding into a dull throb at the back of his mind. The rustling leaves didn't whisper of hidden nightmares anymore. Stepping on the cold grass, he remembered the hobo clown, the fears he had confronted and the question that had led him to re-evaluate his life. He was sober, healthier, and oddly happier. It was a peculiar gratitude, thanking a nightmare. But Darius couldn't shake off the feeling that the clown had been a manifestation of his subconscious, a grotesque guide who had led him out of his spiraling addiction and fear. That night, as Darius slept in his apartment, he dreamt of the clown again. The disheveled figure stood at a distance, his garish face softened by a gentle, almost proud, smile. "Why so serious, Darius?" the clown asked again. But this time, the question didn't feel threatening. It felt like an old friend checking in. Darius looked at the clown and laughed. The sound echoed through the dreamscape, the laughter of a man who had faced his fears and came out stronger. The clown chuckled along with him, his figure slowly fading into the ether of the dream. "That's more like it, Darius. Keep laughing. Keep living." When Darius woke up, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a long time. The sun was shining, the park outside his window alive with laughter and life. It was going to be a beautiful day. Why so serious? Darius mused to himself, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. Why indeed?
Deja vu. Marjorie and Alan spent 15 years living under the suffocating blanket of guilt. Every sleepless night, each empty day, a constant reminder of their unspeakable act. They had buried their only daughter, Amelia, beneath a large oak tree in their backyard. It was a night of bitter arguments and uncontrollable anger that led to the tragedy. As they told the world, Amelia had simply vanished. The guilt was their burden alone to bear. Then, one day, the telephone rang, slicing through the stillness of their quiet home. Alan answered, his voice hoarse, unused to conversation. A woman's voice echoed from the other end, "Hello, Dad. It's Amelia." Alan dropped the phone, his eyes wide with terror. Marjorie rushed to his side, picking up the receiver. "Who is this?" "Mom, it's me, Amelia. I've missed you." Marjorie's blood ran cold. The voice was uncannily similar to Amelia's, only more mature, grown. It was the voice of a woman their daughter never had the chance to become. Fear pulsed through their veins. "Where are you, Amelia?" Marjorie asked, her voice trembling. I'm at the oak tree," the voice said. In dread, the couple looked out of their kitchen window towards the backyard. It was empty. They felt the old guilt surging up again, a gnawing beast at their souls. Unable to resist, they ventured out into the darkness, drawn towards the massive oak tree under which their sin was buried. As they neared the tree, their phone buzzed again. Marjorie picked up, her voice barely a whisper. "Amelia, I see you now, Mom. Don't you recognize me?" A gust of wind rustled through the oak leaves. The parents shivered, their gazes locked on the dark silhouette of the tree, the lone sentinel of their horrible secret. Days turned into weeks, and the mysterious phone calls continued. Every time, Amelia would claim she was near them, watching. They searched for her relentlessly, but they found nothing. Their home, once a sanctuary, now became a haunting ground for their guilt and fear. Amelia was their ghost, a specter of their past, and she was closing in on them. One stormy night, their telephone rang again. Marjorie picked it up, her hands shaking. "Where are you, Amelia?" She croaked, her voice drowned out by the pounding rain. "I'm in the house, Mom." "Don't you want to see me?" The couple froze, their eyes darting towards the hallway leading to Amelia's old bedroom. The door, which had been locked for years, stood ajar, spilling a sliver of light into the otherwise dark corridor. Guided by a fear-filled curiosity, they ascended the stairs, their footsteps echoing in the silent house. As they pushed open the door, a chill wind swept over them, revealing a room untouched by time. It was as Amelia had left it 15 years ago, a prison of their guilt, now come to life. The phone buzzed in Marjorie's hand. "I'm here, Mom. Don't you see me?" Amelia's voice echoed from the other end. As they gazed into the mirror on Amelia's vanity table, they saw her reflection standing behind them. The ghostly figure of a woman, eerily similar to their lost daughter, but older. Her eyes were the same deep blue, her smile the same gentle curve, yet tinged with an unsettling familiarity. Petrified, they watched as the apparition raised her hand, pointing towards the ground. Following her direction, they found a patch of loose floorboards. Alan pried them open, revealing a small box filled with Amelia's possessions, a diary, some toys, and a small, ancient-looking amulet. They recognized the amulet. It was a family heirloom, a charm said to have the power to protect its wearer from harm. Amelia had loved the artifact and was often seen playing with it. Suddenly, the horrifying reality dawned upon them. In their rage that fateful night, they had not seen the amulet clutched in Amelia's hand. Could it have saved her? Or was it all just an echo of their guilt, the product of their tormented minds? As they looked back at the mirror, the apparition was gone, leaving only their haunted reflections. The phone line buzzed one last time. "Goodbye, Mom. Dad. Remember me." The room fell silent, the chilling presence was gone, but their guilt remained. Their punishment was not death, but the eternal torment of their conscience, the endless echoes of their past. The déjà vu of their monstrous act. For Marjorie and Alan, their horror story was only just beginning. Life imitating art. In the dusty corners of North Haven's library, forgotten tomes whispered secrets of days long gone. On one ordinary afternoon, Douglas McGregor, a 40-something loner, stumbled upon an old, cobwebbed novel. Its muted cover bore an intriguing title, Silhouette in the Shadows. Intrigued, he borrowed the book and returned to the somber solitude of his home. Douglas's house was just as nondescript as him. As an unassuming man with no family or close friends, he led a mundane life, working as a local grocer. His world revolved around ordinary routines, with books being his sole refuge. He found lives lived in their pages far more captivating than his own. As he began reading Silhouette in the Shadows, Douglas found the setting eerily familiar. The protagonist was a grocer, dwelling in a modest, detached house, in a town identical to North Haven. With every flipped page, the similarities grew uncanny. The protagonist's character, mannerisms, the layout of his home, his lack of social interactions, everything mirrored Douglas's own life with disturbing precision. A sense of unease crept over him, but he dismissed it as mere coincidence and continued reading. As he delved deeper into the story, the novel took a sinister turn. A ruthless serial killer emerged, stalking the grocer, choosing his prey with chilling deliberation. Douglas's discomfort grew into palpable dread. He tried to dismiss it, but his attempt was feeble against the creeping horror that gripped him. His anxiety peaked when he read a scene detailing the killer's first direct contact with the grocer, leaving a macabre calling card, a crimson rose, symbolizing the impending doom. Shaken, Douglas put the book aside, only to find a crimson rose lying ominously on his coffee table. He hadn't noticed it before. Was it there all along? The blood in his veins turned to ice. Sweat beaded on his forehead as Douglas recalled the last customer he had served that day, a cloaked figure who bought a bunch of crimson roses. The resemblance of reality with fiction was terrifying. It was then he realized that the book wasn't just mirroring his life, it was predicting it. Ignoring his fears as paranoia, Douglas tried to return to his routine. However, the eerie sense of being watched never left him. The book lay on his table, its pages concealing horrors yet to unfold. After days of resisting, he picked it up again, drawn into its chilling prophecy. The killer's presence grew, prowling around the grocer's house under the cloak of darkness, feeding off the terror. The victims in the book were all loners, just like him, murdered in their own homes. Each death was symbolized by a crimson rose, and the killings were becoming more frequent. He flipped to the last chapter, his hand trembling. There, in the chilling climax, the grocer found himself cornered in his house, the killer revealing himself, the glint of a blade, the final crimson rose, and then darkness. The grocer was no more. Just as he finished reading the book, the lights in his house flickered and went out. A chill ran down his spine. He could sense an alien presence in the gloom. Heart pounding, he stumbled toward the front door, but it was jammed. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye. A shadowy figure detached itself from the darkness, a glint of metal in its hand. The figure lifted the veil, and in the dim moonlight streaming through the window, Douglas recognized the face of the cloaked customer, twisted into a ghastly grin. "Life imitates art, wouldn't you say, Douglas?" the killer sneered, stepping closer. Douglas could see the impending doom, yet he wasn't ready to surrender. With a primal scream, he lunged at the killer, catching him off guard. They grappled, the killer's blade glancing off Douglas's shoulder, leaving a searing trail of pain. Douglas managed to land a punch, momentarily disorienting the killer. He seized the moment, sprinting towards the kitchen. He had a plan, he knew the layout of his house like the back of his hand, unlike the killer. With a desperate hope, he reached for the hidden panel under the sink, pulling out the revolver he had stored for safety. As the killer lunged at him, Douglas fired. The gunshot echoed, followed by a heavy thud. The figure crumpled to the ground, the crimson rose falling from his grasp. Panting heavily, Douglas leaned against the wall, the horrifying reality sinking in. The life-imitating art had unfolded just as the book predicted, yet he had altered the narrative. The crimson rose lay discarded, its symbolic meaning lost. As dawn seeped into his house, Douglas decided to burn the book, ending its chilling prophecy. His life, once echoing the frightening events of a forgotten novel, was his own again. The eerie echoes of life-imitating art were finally silenced, swallowed by the flames of his relief.
Thank you for watching, and remember, the darkness awaits. Until our paths cross again, stay fearful and stay subscribed.